Welcome back to another episode of Inspirational Journeys of the Best Minds. I'm your host, Ria, and today we have a remarkable leader joining us, someone who really walks the talk. He not only excels in professional career, but also embodies values that encourage growth and inclusiveness within teams. I'm thrilled to introduce you to Sammy Elazab, the Sales Director for Southeast Asia at Samsung Ads. As an influential figure in advertising technology, Sammy brings over 2 decades of experience to his craft. He's also known for nurturing talent and creating environments where people can thrive. Having previously been at LinkedIn as the Director of Online Sales and now transitioned to Samsung Ads, he has honed his skills in building lasting client relationships and driving business growth. Sammy's advocacy for workplace equality and inclusivity shines through in his thought leadership articles, and his emphasis on allyship underscores his commitment to creating environments where every voice is valued and heard. Welcome to the podcast, Sammy. I'm thrilled to have you here in Hong Kong doing this conversation with you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me here. It's my first time back to Hong Kong since the pandemic. I used to come here pretty regularly, but I haven't been here since 2019, so I got here a couple of days ago, and it's been great to be back in the city.
Any big changes you saw in Hong Kong?
Good point. I haven't overly thought about it. It seems pretty similar right now, to be honest, but I've been mainly in an event, so I've been indoors in a hotel for the past couple of days. So I haven't really been able to get out and see the sights yet.
I'm sure the weather is nicer than Singapore.
The weather's been beautiful. The day I arrived was gorgeous.
So, Sammy, your devotion to maintaining a balance when it comes to work and family is very well seen on LinkedIn, and I think many people admire you for that. Where did you grow up? How was it that you wanted to be growing up? And how did that cultivate you, how you've transitioned to in your career?
Good questions. I mean, it's hard probably to connect the dots, but I grew up in Leeds, in North England, so very far away from Singapore. My parents are originally Egyptian, so they were born and raised in Egypt. They went over, and I grew up as one of the only Egyptian families in West Yorkshire. Let's put it that way. There weren't many of us around. I was always very keen on sport. I think that has a big impact in terms of my leadership style and like working with teams. So there's a big connection there. But what I wanted to be initially was a fireman.
Wow.
I think when I was a kid, there was a show called Fireman Sam. I don't know if you have it over in Asia. They're very popular in the UK. Obviously, I had the connection with the name as a show that I watched regularly, and that's what I wanted to be. And then as I grew a little bit older and I played a lot of rugby, I had aspirations of being a professional rugby player. That didn't quite pan out, and I ended up going into university and doing a marketing degree, and that kind of ended up where I am now. Yeah.
Why did you end up in marketing? Why did you choose marketing in university?
Good question. I actually kind of regret this choice. So I felt at A levels I wasn't very good at maths. I wanted to do like business studies, but in my head I thought, well, if I could do something that's close to business studies but remove the maths, that's probably marketing. And that was my thought behind it. But in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd done business studies and put myself into more of a uncomfortable zone, I guess, and just taken on the challenge. Yeah.
I think the math struggle lies amongst a lot of us.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
So, given that they were different from fireman to being a rugby
I was young.
player.
There's lots of different things I wanted to be. Yeah.
And now as a marketing professional in sales, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced? I mean, you've spanned your career from the UK moving to Singapore.
Yeah.
How was that journey and how did
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the biggest challenges was just deciding what to do in the first place. I'd say even the university degree wasn't something I was sure about. Mm-hmm. I actually, it's probably my parents, my father in particular, who was like, hey, you should go to university because there are a number of reasons. It's not just about the degree. It's also about like learning to live on your own and learning to cook and learning to meet people and socialize and all that side of it as well. So there's a big focus on that from my parents. I had a theory of like, what if I just go into work now and work 4 years rather than going to university? I could be more successful quicker. So my parents guided me towards university. I did that. No regrets, although I do still kind of think that potentially if I'd gone into business sooner, I could have been equally or even potentially more successful, depending on how it went. So the first challenge was just picking what to do after university, and it kind of landed on my feet. I had a friend who was working at a company called Bayat. It was a small startup. They were hiring. It was in Newcastle. I went to university. I got the opportunity to work for them. It was amazing working in a startup to begin with. It was 30, 40 people in the office. Great environment, great culture to learn how to sell and to learn how to engage with clients and to travel England, going to meetings and all the rest of it. So I can recommend having some sort of startup experience in your career at some point. I think is worth it for everyone. So really, really enjoyed that. That got me to London. They eventually grew and started an office in London. I was part of the team that moved to London. Worked there for a few more years with them, and then got an opportunity to work on the client side, where I worked for O2 Telefonica. Worked there for a couple of years. Found that a little bit challenging. You know, I think going from startup where you could kind of not do what you want, but you could almost like write your own rules a little bit. Like if you hadn't done something before, it was like how to figure out to do it, and moving to a structure which is a lot more corporate. Things you can and can't do and corporate, and you know, I didn't really appreciate that at the time. But I worked there for a couple of years. That was a challenge. It worked well. It was a good role, but like I said, just didn't. There was a big commute involved in it, and I didn't really warm to it too much. And then I'd met my now wife, and we decided we wanted to come to. No, we didn't. We decided we wanted to do some traveling. So the choice was either I look for a job to go closer to London, which is where we were living, and London's amazing. You know, we've been there for 6 years. We've happily done that. We wanted to do some traveling, so the worry was if I got a new job in London, who knows if it's going to be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you never get to go traveling. So we both decided to bite the bullet and go traveling, which we did. We went to India, Nepal, China, Southeast Asia, and the goal was to always try and find a role in Singapore. Mainly because my wife's also in advertising, and we felt that it was an up-and-coming hub for the region, and we felt that the skills that we'd learned we could transfer quite easily. So we got there, and we were both lucky enough to find work within a month, and that was over 12 years ago now. Wow. So I guess the biggest challenges, back to the original question, really just about figuring out the unknown. And for me, you know, I've always been kind of a gut person. You know, if it feels right, I'll kind of go for it, and you know, it's treated me well so far, I guess.
How was the transition from the UK to finding a base in Singapore?
Yeah, you know, I remember when we did it, and I remember having a meal with friends and stuff, and they're just sort of laughing, going, "You can't just go to a different country and start work. It doesn't work like that." And you know, I don't know. We always just felt like if it doesn't work, okay, well, we've had a great month traveling. We've tried something new. We'll go back to London and we'll sleep on our parents' sofas until we find a job again. And that's kind of how we approached it. And so we just went for it. And the transition, I think there was a lot of cultural differences when we started to work, which we suddenly got used to. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's 12 years now. I've had a couple of jobs in Singapore. My wife's been working very successfully as well. So we've had our 3 kids there. So it's quickly turned into home. So whatever that transition was, it worked out pretty well. Yeah.
So Sammy, I think you've been a huge influence to many young people and just the co-workers that had a chance to work with you. But my question to you is, who has been a source of inspiration to you or an influential figure in your life?
Thank you for that. Thank you for the nice comments. So yeah, my mum and dad had a big influence on me. When I look at their journey, they were originally from Egypt. They well educated, but grew up in very different environments to what I grew up. Like my dad, for example, all family. He has, I think it was 4 brothers and a sister, and they were all in like the same house. And as they grew up, he ended up buying like their whole house that they lived in. Every floor they bought, they'd buy a new floor for the whole family. And my dad's working in the UK to send money back to do that. And I think that move from Egypt to England was massive. It must have been a lot harder for him to do that, and my mum, than it was for me to come to Singapore, for example. My mum has always been a professional person. They were both doctors out of Egypt, so they came over, but she stopped her career to look after me and my brother. And there's 8 years difference between my brother. He's 8 years older than me. So she stopped her career for quite a while, and then she went into study to become a teacher. She's a very well-educated person, and I think they both taught me like the importance of hard work and graft. I think that's had a big impact on me, and yeah, my mum ended up managing my dad's surgery, so they ended up working together before they both retired. But the importance of the family unit, it was really just the 4 of us. There weren't many Egyptian families in Leeds and West Yorkshire when I was growing up, so having a family there, the 4 of us were really tight, and then watching them both be really committed to their career. It's not a surprise I've ended up marrying someone probably who's career driven, and maybe it's not a surprise that we made the choice to move abroad and try something new, to try and better ourselves as well. Maybe subconsciously I got that from my mum and dad as well. So Yeah, they had a big impact on me. They're over in the UK now. Don't see enough of them, so they're worth a shout out.
And now, in terms of from moving from a startup roles to now corporate roles, like more established companies, multinational companies, from LinkedIn to Samsung, how has that kind of cultivated your leadership style? Because on LinkedIn we see a lot about you speaking on allyship. I think that's a core element that you still believe in.
Yeah, for sure.
So how has your leadership skills evolved over the years?
Yeah, well, I think LinkedIn will take a lot of credit for this. I think they're very good in terms of culture and values, and it's something that when I'm building teams, it's really important for me to figure out what sort of culture you want to create within your team, and then how that fits into the whole corporate company as well. So that's something that's on top of my mind. Linking it to allyship, I'll be perfectly honest. I think when I started LinkedIn and there was all these ERGs and these groups around different areas, like women at work, I didn't really get it. Where I came from the UK, that wasn't something that we talked about. And there was definitely moments where I'd be like, why can't we just go on our jobs and work and sell? And like, why are we even talking about this? And it took a while for the light switch to come on, I guess. And ultimately, what happened wasn't just LinkedIn. LinkedIn talk all about it, and they very much walk the walk, which is great. But really, there's a personal effect of my wife, seeing my wife have 3 kids at work, seeing how the different challenges that she went through versus the challenges that I went through, and how that impacted her career. She works for a very good company as well, so it's nothing directly that company did, but there is just light and day between some of the advantages that men get over women in that kind of situation. So I think going through that, seeing some of the struggles that she went through that I just didn't understand or know they really existed, made me want to be the sort of leader, the sort of partner, the sort of father that encouraged, that tried to drive change, I guess, is the thing. So one of the ways that I feel I can do that as a relatively senior person in a corporate organization is to talk about it, is to share content about it. Social media is a great platform for that, right? So being an ally there are a lot of good and bad things out in the world, and being an ally, I think if you really want to drive change, you have to think what sort of action you can drive. And again, my position, I'm in a privileged position where I can influence people's opinions, and I feel like I can connect with people maybe that were like me 20 years ago, and make them understand that there are challenges that women face in the workplace that I wasn't aware of, and they could be aware of, and help try and drive change. Have you seen a big shift in this, in allyship, or just how people are in organizations? Yeah, not just to women, even men have different, their own set of problems. And it's not just women in the workplace, right? There's a lot of challenges out there. I mean, I think it's good that we talk about it a lot more. If we look at allyship specifically towards women in the workplace, we talk about it a lot more, but the stats aren't really indicating change, right? So there's a lot more women going into work, but then we get to leadership positions, it's not a huge change around the percentage between men and women in that position, but even higher up, again, there's a lot more male CEOs than there are female. So I think until we see really those numbers change, that's when we can say we're making a difference. But right now, you try not to get discouraged, but they say that the gender gap is still 300 years away. That's crazy, right? I mean, that's not going to help my daughters, so that's what I'm trying to drive change for, right? So yeah, it's really difficult until you see those things change. Then is it making a difference? I don't know, but I think I've got to keep trying. And yeah, the one way that I can think about it is to go up and talk about it, again, to try and connect with people who are maybe like me 20 years ago, and get them to change their opinion sooner than I did. You shouldn't have to get married and have daughters to realize that there are challenges out there that you can influence. And now at Samsung, since you're building your team, you're deciding how you want to grow this team in Southeast Asia, what factors do you take into consideration, apart from skill set? But what else is important when you're building a team? The hiring process is really important, right? I think the easiest thing that I could do is go hire 4 people that were just like me, so I'm very conscious of that, and make sure that the hiring process is fair and even, and that both men and women will be able to come and work and feel that they have an equal chance of either senior opportunities or whatever it may be that they're interested in. So I think that's really key. Again, thinking about that culture, thinking about what sort of environment you want to create. The team that I'm starting in Samsung is obviously massive. Yeah. We sell everything, everything electronic. Yeah. Samsung has its name on, but the part that I'm building is very new to the Southeast Asia region. The advertising piece around connected TV. The products became available last year. I was employee number one with another colleague. We joined at the same time. So we are building something. Yeah. So I think I've always kind of liked that idea. Maybe it's from that startup background, but so the people that I'm looking for have to kind of be scrappy, have to be kind of tenacious. But if they've had some experience in corporate, it'll probably be beneficial as well. So yeah, just trying to make it fair for everyone to apply, try and give everyone an opportunity for what they want to do outside of their role, whether it's like leadership and so on as well.
And what advice would you give to the young generation that's like entering the workforce, graduating? Yeah. What would you tell young Sammy?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I hadn't thought about this, but that whole startup thing, like I do think that's generally a really good thing for anyone to go through, whether it's your own startup or someone else's startup. Mm-hmm. I really think that was a good foundation of business and put you in a really good learning place. I think any corporate company, if that's where you ended up, would benefit from anyone who's had that kind of experience. I think change is really important. I think in my younger years, I'd fight change a lot, whether it be like a process or a management change or a change of strategy, There's one thing maybe disagreeing and trying to influence in a positive way, but there's, fighting change is not necessarily productive. And I think for teams and for companies that can be something that younger professionals take a while to kind of just embrace. I'm not saying you have to do exactly like you're told or anything like that, but figuring out a way to have a positive influence when change is happening is something that's really important. And then I'd say probably in my early years, I was a bit cliquey. Like I'd find a group of people in an organization and that would be kind of like my gang. I think as I grew up, I realized the importance of connecting, of speaking to people who, even if your team's like 10 and an organization is 20, like what's he or she in the corner doing, getting to know what they do. And then if it's an international company, connecting with people across the globe. I think that is really, really important for anyone who's in not just a corporate, any kind of organization really. Like I think if you have those connections, it will lead to opportunities, it will lead to discovering different ways to solve problems and challenges that you might have, and who knows what doors it might open in the future.
And given your vast experience over the years, is there any one moment that you feel very fulfilled with your career, or one of your happiest moments?
Fulfilled with my career? I moved to Singapore was big. I mean, I wasn't directly in sales when I was in the UK, but I always wanted to move in sales. I was in more kind of like account management. And when I moved to Singapore, I very much wanted to be in sales. So that was like the first time I did that. And then other than that, I've been lucky. I've been relatively successful throughout my time. I pushed hard for a director role at LinkedIn. Felt like I had to do a lot of things to do that. I had a team of just under 40 by the time I left there. And I think getting that was probably feels like one of the big achievements. And then, of course, getting the Samsung role, I felt I was very lucky to get it. It's an awesome opportunity, again, the whole idea of starting something new. Yeah. I haven't done CTV before, so it's all new. I like the idea of learning. And so I think a few different milestones, I guess. Yeah.
And I always end on this question, but if you were to win the lottery and time was not a factor, what would you do?
Something good. I'm passionate about my coaching. It's hard to commit to I don't know, like if I wanted to do my own business, my own kind of coaching company or whatever. It's hard to do that as a full-time commitment while you're working. Yeah. And I find ways of doing it for either people in the industry who sort of reach out to me, or ex-colleagues, or even my team. That's how I kind of incorporate it. But I think I'd like to. I try and figure out something around coaching, staying within business. I like the idea of helping young professionals. That's always been something of interest to me. I've just started young professionals, young managers. I feel like I can add a lot of value there. So I think I'd focus on that side of stuff. That'd be an area of focus. Yeah.
Excellent. Any last thoughts before we conclude?
Any last thoughts for nothing massively. Don't be scared to take risks. I think that's a big one. Especially if you're young and early in your career. if you're gonna fail, the best time to do it is when you're young, and and there's nothing wrong with failing and learning from that experience. So that's something I would always encourage young professionals to do as well.
Thank you so much for speaking to us today and
Thank you for
having
having
this
me.
conversation.